Hello and welcome to Dressmaking Amore. Today in this video, I'm so excited to show you how to sew this blissfully elegant and perfectly dramatic sweater. It has beautifully dramatic bell sleeves, a charming turtleneck collar neckline, and the most perfect relaxed fit with stretchy fabric that ties it all together into one romantic, easy, and quick to make sweater. So without further ado, let's get started using my new dove sewing pattern, which you can get at the link below this video. Here are the materials that you'll need. I'm using this beautiful taupe ripped knit fabric for my sweater. It's going to give a lovely texture to the design while still being structured enough for a smooth, thick drape. This pattern is only made for knit fabric with a stretch, so I recommend using something like a French terry, Hachi Fabric, sweater knit, or a Rayon bamboo or Modal fabric. Now I'll cut out the pattern pieces from my fabric and make sure to transfer the marks to make it easier to sew in the process. And there are detailed instructions on exactly how to do this in the booklet that comes with your pattern. Here are my pattern pieces: the front, back, sleeves, and the collar. Okay, let's get to sewing. We'll start by placing the front and back pieces right sides together and pinning the shoulder seam. Also, pin the center seam of your collar. Now sew the shoulder seam. To stabilize the seam here, I'm using some stay tape. Sew the center seam of the collar. And press the shoulder seam towards the back and cool it down with a clapper. Now press your collar seam and at the center press it into opposite directions to avoid bulkiness. Fold your collar in half and mark the quarters on the collar. Press the bottom edge of the collar, slightly stretching it to give it a curved edge so that your collar will have a rounded bottom. Mark the quarters of the neckline, starting from the center front to the center back and then at the sides. Pin the collar into the neckline right sides together. Match the quarter marks on the collar and the neckline. Then pin in between these marks. Sew the collar into the neckline. Now hide your serger threads into the seam here like so, and then cut the extra threads. Press the neckline seam allowances towards the bodice. Now we'll move on to our sleeves. Pin the sleeve into your armhole, matching the back notches on the sleeve and the bodice, as well as the shoulder seam with the sleeve center mark. Sew the sleeve into the armhole. And press the armhole seam towards your sleeve here. Now pin the side seams of the sweater and the sleeves. And sew the side seams. Position the seam allowances on the armhole in opposite directions to avoid any bulk here as well. Now serge the bottom edge of the sleeve. And hide your serger threads. Serge the bottom edge of the bodice. First, press the side seam as it is to get rid of any waviness that can appear after serging and cool it down with a wooden clapper. Then press the serged edge of the sleeve and the bottom edge of the sweater as well. Any waviness magically disappears here after ironing. And to finish off here, press the side seam towards the back. Now to make our hem for the bodice of the sweater, mark 5 centimeters up from the bottom towards the wrong side and fold to that mark and pin. Press. And repeat the same process on the sleeve, making the hem narrower if you like. Hem the bodice using a twin needle. And using your double needle, top stitch the sleeves using the same process. And press the hem of the bodice and the sleeves. Now this is optional, but if you like a more defined shoulder line, I'll show you how you can add shoulder pads to this dove sweater. So I had these thin shoulder pads on hand, but for this design I wanted slightly thicker ones. I couldn't find it at the store, so I'm just gonna make them. I'm also gonna cover them with the same fabric as the sweater for a beautiful uniform look. So take enough fabric to cover the shoulder pad and fold it in half, placing the shoulder pad along the straight edge of the fabric and mark all around with the distance of 1 centimeter. Then cut along this marked line, and now we have a little pattern for the pads. I'll make 2 pads and cover them with the fabric, pinning all around the edge. Then sew along the 1 centimeter mark, catching the very edge of the pads while sewing. Then serge around the edge. And don't forget to hide your serger threads. Now place the pads inside right along the shoulder, pinning it here at the shoulder seam. Try them on to see where you would like to position them. For the second shoulder, I pinned a thinner pad to compare which one fit better to the shoulder type and shape. When you decide which shoulder pads you'll use, sew them into place. Sew the corners of the shoulder pads to the armhole seam allowances. At the armhole, make a thread chain 1 centimeter long and join it with the shoulder pads. This way our pads will still have room to move comfortably. In the same way, sew the other corner. Then sew the shoulder pads to the shoulder seam, sewing it in place without any chain. Giving a slight press to these shoulder pads, we are done here. And after giving your entire garment a finishing press like always, we are done with our beautiful dove sweater. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this inspires you to sew the sweater yourself. I know you'll love it. You can get the PDF downloadable sewing pattern that I used at the link in the description of this video, and happy sewing!